Okay, so I'm really excited because today we're interviewing Sabui Gard. Now, I've known Sabui for a long time, we worked together, and this is going to be a great interview. Sabui has over 20 years media experience as a freelance journalist and also in-house, and she specialises in certain sectors, definitely the SME market, but she also specialises in financial products, investment banking, personal finance, wealth management and fund management, reading that. I won't go through a whole CV, but I just want you to know that you are in safe hands today. So Sabui has written so she was the finance editor of Yahoo Finance. She's worked on behalf of ITN, Channel 4. She's written for The Times, The Sunday Times, for Reuters, for the Daily Telegraph. So it's safe to say that this is going to be a wonderful interview. Now, Sabui actually got in touch with me a few weeks ago because she asked me if I'd contribute to one of her articles because journalists need help with stories. So I said, yeah, of course, I would love to help, but actually, let's interview you again. So quite a few years ago, we interviewed Sabui about how to write your press release and what not to do in your press release. And we'll make sure we put a link up to that so you can watch that. But I wanted to kind of get her on board again to bring up to speed on how the media has changed and to probably go through similar questions, but to bring you up to speed in a fresh way. So thank you for joining us, Sabui.
It's a pleasure, Rachel. It's great to be here again. So you mentioned a few highlights of my career. It's been 20 years now. I can't believe it. And it's been a long 20 years. And the media's changed a lot. And I basically, when I started in the late 90s, the internet was just starting, and now the internet sort of surpassed a lot of the print publications, and you have news sites like HuffPost or BuzzFeed, all those sort of things. And all those sort of publications are amazing, or Business Insider. You've also got the strength of social media. So back then, there was no Twitter, there was no LinkedIn, I think. There was no, Facebook. And journalists just had to get on the phone and speak to people.
So is your job harder or easier, would you say now, or is it just different?
I think it's just different. I think also, it's fun speaking to people. It's fun going to events. And I think there's unfortunately less so now. And journalists are under pressure to basically work to tight deadlines. And there's a danger of just press release rewrites and journalism, which is sad, really.
Did you say then journalism?
Journalism. So you're literally just sitting there writing up press releases because you just don't have time. The news is so fast.
Yes.
Social media has made news reporting extremely quick. And quicker than humans can actually type out the story. So that's a bit of a shame. That sort of craft is dying slightly, the sort of hands-on, pick up the phone. It's still alive and kicking if you're an investigative reporter. And there's been some great exposés and quite sad exposés. For example, by The Guardian, there's been the Windrush scandal, or you've had the President's Club scandal by the FT. And those, to me, are old school investigations, which are still alive and kicking. But when you sort of go into the news sphere, there is a tendency to just churn out news stories without ringing people up, unfortunately. Not naming any names, I think it's a general move to the industry. Yes, so there's been a lot of change in the last 20 years. It's different now, being a journalist. It's, social media can help you, but at the same time, you get bombarded with news and it's difficult to sort out.
That's what I was going to say. So in terms of, because obviously people listening to this are organisations, business owners, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs. There might be a few PR agencies watching this, and it'd be good to understand, because what I do is try and help people, to inspire them to approach journalists like yourself, not be too scared, but to get it right from writing the right type of story. So before we go into kind of, the ratio of press releases, where they come from, whether it's PR agencies or direct, can I just ask you, again, we've covered this before, but for anyone that's new to watching this, it's always going to be useful. What is it you look for in a story? So, do you just want stories that are relevant to the sectors that you write about?
Well, that's a very, very good question, Rachel. I mean, basically, it just depends. I mean, if you're a business owner and you own, a certain type of business, for example, if you're a financial advisor and you've got a small independent financial advice firm, my advice is, coming up to me, if you met me or drop me an email or drop me a line on Twitter, is you've got to sort of be sure what you want to say to a journalist, what you're trying to promote, what you're trying to, say. I mean, basically, are you trying to, hook it to a news story? So, will your business be affected by Brexit? Things like that. Is there a news hook? Is there an angle? Do you just want to publicize the fact that you're opening, for example, with a financial advisor, a new office in your local area? It's quite a vast sort of arena to approach a journalist in. So you've got to be sure what you're sort of saying to a journalist to start with.
And this is where the biggest mistake they make, isn't it? So a lot of, especially if they're not using a PR agencies, and PR agencies do a great job. I'm just going to plug my computer before it goes flat. PR agencies do a great job.
Yes.
So what we want to do is, as well, is encourage you to be able to, for them to be able to approach it direct. But what you don't want is just an advert, really. Like you said, we were saying before this interview. People approach you, we've just opened and we've just launched. Well, so what?
So what? Yeah. I get at least 200 emails a day. Wow. And now, obviously, with the great social media, I'm getting message on LinkedIn and Twitter, which is great for me. But it's literally, I spend most of my day sifting through emails. And what my biggest bugbear is when people write in caps to get your attention.
Okay, so don't do that.
Okay. Have you seen my email? Yes, I have seen it. You don't need to write it in capital letters. I'm like going, just don't do it. It's like someone shouting at you. Yes, I have seen it. I don't think it's newsworthy. Yeah. It's just a shameless plug, and it's not any use to anyone, to the general public. And it's that's not great. So you've got to sort of, I'm always interested, but you need to have a point when you're going to talk to me or talk to a journalist. Otherwise, it does waste people's time. It's clueless versus don't care. Really.
Yeah, I'll put the link into it. It's in our Club 100 membership of people that say how to write the press release and stuff like that. If you want to watch that, you can do, because we went through some press releases, if I remember rightly, on what were good and what weren't good, and you came and you showed us some stories which was really interesting. So okay, so what grabs you? Is it the headline? Is it the summary? How long should a press release be? Because the way we consume the news now is in bite-sized chunks. It's changed. Articles are a lot shorter than they used to be. So what is it that grabs you? What do you initially look for?
Well, basically, there's a couple of things which I look for, and it is the news angle. So in the first paragraph, or even in the second paragraph, it's got to grab my attention. Is it relevant? How it's going to help people? Is it relevant? So that's really, really key. So the news in your press release has to really be at the top of the press release. I, recommend not more than 400 words, 400 to 500 words in a release. Even if you tweet the news out to me, and that's only 140 characters, if you can explain yourself and your business or your story in 140 characters, that's amazing, because that means it's a real story, which you can then, might not even need to write a longer press release statement. You can basically just share that tweet, which I've seen happening.
So for you as a freelance writer, would you want the finished article, or are you also willing to write up the story if it's a good, relevant, newsworthy story?
Oh, the main thing I really do like, and journalists do like, and they do get offended, is basically they don't want a pre sort of arranged story, the pre-written story. I've had public relations people and other people and even CEOs saying, look, I've written the story for you. And it's very difficult then to get. I said, well, I can't put my name to it. I haven't written the story.
Well, that's music to our ears. So basically, we want to come to you with the angle, something that's maybe a little bit different, possibly even an exclusive.
Yeah.
You write it. So as a freelancer then, so we come to you, it's a great story, it's got a fantastic angle, we want to work with you. Do you then pitch it into where you think it's going to work? So do you work for a number of titles? Do you work specifically on one at a time? Or in general, how would it work?
So basically, I know in the last sort of 20 years, I've managed to build up a sort of a contacts base. I do know quite a few, largely national newspaper editors, but also blog writers and stuff like that. So specific to, that particular arena. So for example, I wrote an article on female mentorship. And that article was picked up by NatWest and their sort of female mentor section. That sort of specialised. Also, if they didn't want the article, then I would, email Talented Ladies Club, which is a small blog, but it's very, very targeted. So I basically have a range of contacts from, the national newspapers through to the smaller blogs, which are very, very targeted. So you can reach the correct audience.
Yeah.
So hopefully the next couple of weeks I'll be doing some work with the Spectator Money blog, and they're very personal financy, they're very opinionated. So I probably pitch to that editor, general personal finance news. So for example, something on the end of the tax year.
So this is genuinely a win-win scenario, isn't it? Because again, without going into too much detail, but you get paid to write those articles by the media outlets or to place it. So, everybody's winning really, aren't they? But it's making sure, first and foremost, to have a genuine story that is, or it's topical, so it's relating to what's in the news at the moment, and it's not just we're 10 years in business or we've just opened up, or this is what we do. It's not an advert. It needs to be an emotional connection, doesn't it? It's something that's newsworthy.
It is. I mean, for example, say within the area of finance, there's a lot of days, like International Women's Day, or there's Good Money Week. At the end of this month, there's Investment Advice Month, March, running through March to April. So, a small business who's a financial advisor, for example, could contact me and say, look, we're launching a new product, and or we're launching a product related to, female women and finance. Would you write an article mentioning my company? And it works like that. So you could even relate it to an event. I think we've talked about this before, Rachel. So and it becomes very relevant. So people go, it's International Women's Day, and I can write a story about women and investing.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I just want to say as well, I don't know if you guys, when you're watching this, can hear this, but we've got a bit of background noise that's coming and going. Don't know where it's from, so apologies if you can. I will try when we edit it to take it out, so in which case this isn't really relevant, but keeps coming up. Okay, so what not to do, just very quickly. I think we've pretty much covered it, but what not to do? Perhaps. And
yes, basically when you're trying to sort of get a journalist's attention, write a polite email if you want with your news release or your news angle, maybe, one paragraph or two. Yes, journalists receive hundreds of news, bits of news a day, press releases. Just try to make it short, and then maybe with a follow-up, not sort of harass the journalist and then get annoyed at the end of the day that you haven't read my email. We try our best. Secondly, follow up with a call. What's wrong with ringing a journalist? I know in the past people would just put the phone down on a PR person, or
the thing is,
scared.
People are
scared.
Like we think you're scary people, but you're not really. You're just doing a job, and appreciate that. Get to the point, short and thing. Be polite, like you say. Respect their time and everything as well.
Yeah.
But it's like anything in business. It's about building a relationship, isn't it? I advise people take a bit of time to find what that writer writes about, read, perhaps retweet, connect with them so that they can see that you're in the kind of same community, that kind of thing. And just build that relationship slowly. And so if, let's say, they send you a story, and actually could have been a great story, but you don't comment, they don't reply, they should still keep sending you future stories, shouldn't they? They shouldn't be put off by, she didn't cover that time, she's not interested.
Yes, I mean, basically, one of the amazing things, if you write for a national newspaper on a freelance or a staff basis, you get deluged by news, really. And I wrote recently a piece on healthcare innovations for the Mail on Sunday. It was a sponsored content piece. I got literally 200 emails, products and opinions, and I said, to those people I didn't use, that maybe next time I can use that comment, I could put it somewhere else in a next story. So it's not sort of I have always apologized, I'm very, very sorry about that, but there's always stuff happening, so you can use it again. And never give up really when you approach a journalist. There's friendly journalists there are hard-nosed news journalists who are very, very busy, and they will just unfortunately shoot you down. But generally in the personal finance sphere, and also in the small business arena, we're willing to listen.
Yes.
And it's an amazing thing being an entrepreneur, being creative. I think that's a fantastic thing, and I have great sympathy, and I've always want to do as much for that business. But take your time when you do approach a journalist. That's another thing. Don't just babble and not know what you're going to say to them, because
always have an angle. What about, how do you find, are you open to like introductory emails, so that they might have a story, but also they just want to introduce themselves to you? And do you have like a little black book? So you might say, that story's not working at the moment, but I can see that with their wealth of experience within the finance or wealth or money or whatever it is, they're definitely worth keeping in touch. Do you keep your own contacts?
Yes, I do. I have basically now things have moved on. I have a Google spreadsheet. So I have lots and lots of stuff. Before it was literally just I had it stored on my email. But basically, yeah. So you sort of think, oh, hey, well, Ruth Emery from the Sunday Times might like that, or you just sort of, she's an editor there, she's a personal finance editor, I think deputy personal finance editor there. So, I would say, oh, yes, so that's a great article or a great idea, and, pitch to her later. So
how much of the stories would you say is, do you go out and proactively look for people either via journal requests or through, media request services? I've seen some of your tweets, and I think I retweeted one you did the other day.
Yes.
Journalists use the hashtag journal requests. I know there's so much spam in there now, which is a shame, but what we do is we filter them out. So obviously I grabbed yours the other day and sent it onto our community. But what percentage would you say is news that comes in that you use, or is news that you have to go out and find the case studies or the expert comments?
Well, basically, there is a big push to have a lot of unique stuff and to speak to people with the case studies and stuff I've been doing for small business. So literally daily, I'm using request services. When you work in a newsroom, which is, a long time ago now, but when you work in a newsroom, you have a messaging service. I think they use Slack now at the FT and other. So basically, all these journalists are sharing ideas and contacts. Obviously not scoops, not exclusives, but there's a very fluid, because you're under time pressure, very fluid vein of news. You've got to basically be on it, and I'm finding using these journal requests, response source alerts, very, very helpful. There are a few people who contact me who totally miss the point. Which are, I just don't know what they're thinking, but some of them have, and you think, well, I don't know why you work in this area, but to go back to what you're saying, the alert system is very good for journalists, particularly freelancers who don't work in a newsroom, or are not in close contact with other journalists. It's very, very good sharing information and contacts.
Brilliant, fantastic. Okay, so introductory emails would work. You would keep their contacts. You've got your database and everything.
Yes,
it's all great. So in terms of people approaching you direct, and again, what we're trying to do is inspire people to say, you don't need a PR agency. If you can afford a PR agency, absolutely wonderful, because they're specialists in their field. But do you actually like to go direct to source? Is it good for you also to be able to pick up the phone and speak direct? And do you welcome direct press releases and contact?
I mean, I do at the moment. Yes, I do. So basically, it goes in peaks and troughs, but you can get the clear message out there. And basically, yes, I'm all for communication. And also you can find a lot of freelance journalists. Sorry, going back to another point I was going to say, on directories. So with me, I'm going to, as a member of the NUJ, I'm going to join the freelance NUJ directory. There's lots of other directories that you can find journalists specific to your sector. There's journalism.co.uk directory. There's a new one called PR Max, and basically you can just sort of search for journalists that way, and you can get very good industry approved, I would say, journalists.
And that's what we do. We have a media database, and we partner with most of the people that you've just spoken about. So we have their directories, so we can access it. And what we've done is, they have quite a high rate that they charge PR agencies because they're using it on behalf of their clients. But we've just negotiated a small business rate, so it's just like a one user. So exactly that, they can find the exact journalists right within the sectors, because I think the biggest mistake, the two mistakes people, business owners, due to PR, they get the angle of the story wrong, they write an advert, or they don't have the connections. So if you can find the connections or use services like mine, or the services that are out there, then you find specific people like Sabui that write on finance and wealth and investment and that kind of thing. And then you're matching the services to the sector, aren't you, and the story to the sector. So it's kind of cutting it out straight away, that you know then that that's going to be the right person. So how has it changed in terms of traditional PR versus online PR now? You as a journalist, are you more now writing for, like you say, the business online kind of sphere with their own communities as influencers, or are you still doing traditional journalism as well?
Well, that's a very good question, Rachel. So basically I do, I try and, for the last year, I've actually been doing corporate commercial copywriting work. In the guise of journalism, because a lot of these clients, this one I've been working for in particular is a asset manager, wants me to maintain their website, but with journalism content. So it looks like a sponsored site, but at the same time it has relevant news to their base. So to answer your question, I've been doing a bit of both, and since sort of about 2012, I've been doing a mix of corporate commercial copywriting and a bit of journalism, but I missed a bit of journalism. So I was, in the last year, I was doing some work for Spectator Money Blog, and I loved it because it was like having your own sort of column.
Yes.
So it was a free reign, so I could just basically moan a bit, but also talk about relevant financial issues. So basically, I want to go back to more traditional journalism, and that's, pitching story ideas, getting that byline. I still, after 20 years, love that byline. So, that keeps me going. And also the main thing is making a difference. I mean, that's why I went into journalism. It was to make a difference to people and to help people, and also, well, basically to improve diversity within the sector, which still is not that great, I must say.
Yeah, we're getting better. We are getting there slowly. I think your point with that is wonderful, because it shows, again, the people that are watching this and listening to this, is that they should be considering the digital PR as much as the traditional PR, and they welcome content. So a lot of the corporate websites are looking for genuine content to kind of keep adding value to their communities that are already established. So, what we encourage, our members to do, a part of our community, is to say, look, think about who, what sectors you want to be in, find those websites, those influencers, those bloggers, and see if you can contribute to send regular articles in, because then again, it's a win-win scenario, isn't it? Because they need content to add value to their community, and it's just
perfect. Yeah, that is totally true.
What about stuff like, okay, so you're a traditional journalist, you're a traditional writer. How have things changed in terms of video and podcasting for the organisations that you work with and write? So can people just send you audio clips? Would you use them as a podcast? Can they send you video? Would you use it? How has that been embraced from a freelance journalist point of view?
Right. Okay. Well, basically, with regards to podcasts, everyone seems to be doing a podcast, and that's an amazing thing. Before, it wasn't very trendy because the podcast has been around for a long time. I think so. There's been a vast move towards podcasts, and largely the press releases. I just received press releases. Sorry, and also no video clips and stuff like that. So I don't really receive any of that. I'm very sort of online, writing, feature writing. Unfortunately not so multimedia, but it is really important to have a multimedia presence, really important, because I shared this morning an interview with Tina Brown, and basically I tweeted that out. It's basically, audio and video is very, very important, and podcasts as well. And there's a very popular in finance journalism, because, for example, the FT do a podcast, FT Money podcast, and I think it's every weekend. and it gets people talking and stuff like that. There's a lot of people do webinars and everything like that, but I haven't had direct experience of that at the moment. I'll be fair to say, but it is a very sort of growing medium, particularly podcasts. So.
Yeah, and podcasts are brilliant as well, because especially as entrepreneurs and business owners, we're always learning and finding out what's new, and we're always, our mind's always active. So I think they're great, and you're right. Everybody's creating a podcast. We're doing it, within Blueberry Media Matchmaker. We're doing the videos and everything because you want to add value and keep teaching people. And it's the way we consume things now, isn't it? Everything is in our own time, on demand, whenever we want to listen to it. So have I missed anything, Sabui? Is there anything fundamentally you think I should be telling people, you should be telling people about, so that they get publicity in the right time of media?
Okay, well, I really think that you've got to be positive.
Okay.
Right. I think that's the main thing, to be positive, and to sort of think basically journalists are approachable, and in relation to small business owners, go ahead and promote your business, in a positive way. And we're out there to help you. We're not there to, journalists are out there to help you. They're not there to investigate you or do anything negative. So we are approachable, but also be careful on how you communicate with journalists. They are quite time poor.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be wasting your time or the journalist's time. I would say, if you're really desperate to put a news story out and you sent a press release, or you sent a statement or a tweet to me or to any other journalist, follow up with a call, because it's easy to get lost on things. And
those are great tips. Just one thing to ask you before we wrap this up. I appreciate how busy you are, and we've got some other stuff that we're going to be doing together as well, which is really exciting. I will mention it. Do you credit them? On the whole, I know you've written the article, you've written the article, you've interviewed about publicity and PR and how to go about it, and you've been gracious enough to introduce me at the top, and then at the bottom there's a link to Blueberry Media. So do you introduce, is that pretty much standard from a B2B point of view? I know when it's like a lifestyle story or something like that, how does it work from a crediting point of view? Because they need to get something out of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, basically, that's a very interesting thing, because you've got, I've done both. I've done B2C and B2B. So basically, they'll for example, with a B2C, if I do a lifestyle article, I will ring up a few experts. I will say, Joe Blog says this, and they would have a name check. What I found with the B2B thing, when in that whole arena, is that a lot of people do want a link back or a mention as a source. So in a way to get, in a way to sort of maximize on that, you could probably big yourself up as an expert, and you can have yourself in there. If not necessarily, there's not going to be a link to your website or to your company, at least you get a name check and people could find you that way. So I mean, if for example, I'm writing stuff on payroll and accounting for a big company, basically a lot of the experts have asked me, can I get a link to my site? I can't guarantee that as a journalist, because that would be advertorial really, but I can mention them as an expert, and there are ways around it.
Well, this brings us nicely onto something, and this is what, again, we tell them all the time. Introduce yourself as the expert or as the influencer. Your job is to introduce us and get the story. Their job is to be the great source of information. You're going to them because they have the expertise. They know what they're talking about. But I think we are typically, especially if we're solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, the corporates kind of get it because they are, more confident. We're a little bit shy putting ourselves forward, or we haven't got the confidence. But if somebody is in wealth and they've been in it 10, 15 years, they understand the marketplace, you would see them and value them as an expert, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would. I mean, basically, for example, you could be a specialist in recycling, a recycling business. I would be maybe writing an article for The Independent or something on recycling. I would call you up as a business owner, and say, so-and-so says this of this business. And that is an instant win for that small company, small business owner. They've got national newspaper coverage, and it doesn't look like advertorial, really. And that's the key. It's like having sponsored content, or it's journalism, but on a national newspaper, but it's not advertorial.
Brilliant.
So,
No, that's great. That's really good.
yeah.
And that brings us nicely on to
Right.
with Blueberry Media Matchmaker, we are working with a lot of journalists, and what we're finding is people are finding it hard almost, or just need someone to interview them and put a bio together, or maybe a story. And as a freelancer, that's something you'd be happy to consider to do. So, you know, do people send you many bios? So in terms of an overview, so they introduce themselves as an expert. Is that something you could help with?
That is something I could help with. I mean, basically, in the last only 3 months, I found a few online PRs and PRs sending me profiles of business leaders, and suggesting, will this person, particularly with female mentorship, I had a deluge. It was very interesting, really inspirational, lovely women. I had their biography first, and then the question, would you like to feature in your article? So that's a growing trend. So it's a great thing to have, because people go, so and so, they're going to be great to talk about small business or finance. I'm going to contact them. So yes, that is a really good way to be sort of position yourself as an expert. And also to have a profile. So yeah, more profiles.
So we'll put some links below and some more details. So if you're interested in working, with Sabui and us, in that she can help you either write an article or put your bio together within specific sectors. I think if those are the sectors that you work in, that we mentioned: financial products, investment, banking, personal finance, wealth management, fund management, definitely, if you're interested, get in touch and we'll send the details. And then the final thing we're going to be doing which is really exciting, is to have the opportunity to be able to pitch to Sabui, because as you've heard her say, and again the details will be within this interview, you can find them at the end. So you'll be able to pitch your business and your idea to Sabui. Now, this is going to be an incredible opportunity for you. You really don't want to miss out. We're going to be doing a separate video for it, so I won't go into too much detail at the moment, but there's great opportunities now to kind of make sure you can connect to the right type of journalist, so we can media matchmake you in the correct way. Sabui, thank you so much for your time. It's been
no problem.
Been wonderful, and it's just great to catch up, and obviously there's going to be connections that we can move forward to, but I just want to say a big thank you for your expertise again, your knowledge, and obviously your time, because I know your time poor, so thank you.
All right, lovely. Thank you so much, Rachel. Thanks so much.